Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narsimhan, and we are going to focus on the neighborhood on this Friday edition. Days ahead of Operation Sindur, here on The Right Stand, CNN News 18 had exposed the China-Pak Nexus with exclusive input shared by Manoj Kumar Gupta, the group editor at Investigations and Security Affairs here at the News 18 network. An intelligence note accessed revealed how Pakistan was expected to follow Beijing's orders in the event of any escalation. And this is exactly what happened during Operation Sindur. Here at CNN News 18, we had revealed, here on The Right Stand, how China was using Pakistan as a testing ground for Chinese technology and as a proxy to destabilize Bharat. This is exactly what was confirmed by the Deputy Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Rahul R. Singh, earlier in the day. We have Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey and also Ambassador Rajiv Dogra with us here in the studios. And before we go across to their thoughts, here's what we will just tell you what the Deputy Chief of Army Staff actually said. Now, speaking at an event at the New Age Military Technologies organized by FICCI, Lieutenant General Singh said, first one border and two adversaries. This is what he said. So we saw Pakistan on one side, and that was the border, but the adversaries were two, but actually, in fact, three. He said four and then let's say three. Pakistan was a front. We had China providing all the possible support. Turkey also played an important role in providing the kind of support it did. Listen into what General Rahul Singh said.
Pakistan was the front face. We had China providing all possible support. And it's no surprise, because if you were to look at statistics, in the last 5 years, 81% of the military hardware that Pakistan is getting is all Chinese, 81% of that. And another thing that China perhaps has seen is that he's able to test his weapons against, say, various other weapon systems that are there. It's like a live lab which is available to. So it's a good. That is what is something we have to be very, very cognizant about. When the DGMO level talks were going on, Pakistan actually was mentioning that we know that your such and such important sort of vector is primed and it is ready for action. I would request you to perhaps, pull it back. So he was getting live inputs as far as from China. So that is one place we really need to move fast.
Now, during Operation Sindur, Pakistan used China's PL-15 missiles, which were destroyed by Bharat. Pakistan used China's J-10 and JF-17 fighter planes, which were again damaged and destroyed by Bharat. Pakistan used China's HQ-9 air defense systems, again destroyed by Bharat. Turkey's Bayraktar TB2 Yiha drones, they were also destroyed by Bharat. So at all points in time post-Operation Sindur, the defense industry of China saw an 8% drop in its shares, whereas on the day of the 7th of May, their stocks had gone up. Now, General Pandey, Ambassador Rajiv Dogra is with us. We also have with us Group Captain MJ Vinod. He was en route here to the studio to join our guests join us in the studio. But he got stuck in the Delhi rains and Delhi traffic, so he's joining us virtually via Zoom. Group Captain MJ Vinod, namaste. Namaste and Jai Hind to our guests in the studio. General Pandey, अब आप बताइए, what do we do about this? This is confirmation from the army that there was real-time intel being provided by China. Now, is that not China participating in a bilateral conflict or a conflict between two nations?
Yeah, I think Anand, on your channel, we had discussed this point very clearly, that the Chinese will love India to fight against Pakistan because it allows them a couple of things. The first is great nations, powerful nations don't fight directly, right? They try and use proxy to fight this thing, so that they diminish the power which is there against whom their primary contenders. Second is a major defense industry is mushrooming in China, which is going to take on eventually the military industrial complex of the West, and particularly the Americans. And the third is, in the long run, they are likely to confront in the military realm for the unipolar status or at least a bipolar status. So this is a long-term game. Now, where can they validate their equipment which they have to use in operations? the best place to use it is in a proxy nation. And I think this was the best way to carry out validation of their equipment. And therefore, what my fear is that today, after getting certain amount of success in Operation Sindur, our military establishment and strategic leadership should not get away with this idea that this is all. Because now in this gap period, all the data which is collected or success and failure of their equipment, which is very well integrated, their ISR system, the weapon system and the command and control system, all three are pretty well integrated, right? Now they are going to see how Indians were able to breach the AD systems of there, that AD wall. We carried out these, targeting very well. Second is how they were able to at least reach out at some places they were able to, and why they were not able to breach our system. So now these planning will be fast and furious. So the next time we join either with Pakistan or in long run with China, whenever, they will be far more ready and prepared for this. So concern is not China, concern is internal. My major concern in internal is there is a string of people in our country who feel that war is avoidable, right? And that is part of the political dispensation. There's also part of a strategic dispensation. While we must avoid war, but we need to prepare for a conflict with our primary adversary and not Pakistan. Pakistan is the face of China, and this can very quickly castigate and upgrade into a war with a country with China, because somewhere the maturity level or the fear in Galwan, Doklam pulled back the Chinese from going ahead with it, right?
Correct.
And they blinked. But next time they may not. Are we be preparing for that? So this should be our
that thought orientation, let's Ambassador Rajiv Dogra and then Group Captain MJ Vinod, that thought orientation for us as a country, we thought our vector is this way, our fight is with the Pakistanis. Why weren't we, or did we not think कि भाई ये चीनी भी है, ये भी देख रहे होंगे हमको, they will also be trying to say, are we not thinking like them, or are they far ahead in their thought process?
Well, I wouldn't like to second guess our defense planners and defense strategists, but there is need for real concern, as General Pandey has very correctly said. Let me go back a little in history, because in 1971, Kissinger tried his best that China should join in with Pakistan to confront India, or at least move its forces on the border, so that India gets distracted. China resisted, partly because of the Soviet pressure at that time. But since then, times have changed dramatically. In 1980s, China gave the first missiles to Pakistan. They were stationed in Karachi. There are rumors that it tested Pakistan's first nuclear test in China. And after that, it's been progression upwards. What has happened now, while you and General Pandey were discussing, I was thinking, why was General Munir made the Field Marshal? If Chinese involvement was so much that the generals were present there, next time a Chinese general would be made the Pakistani Field Marshal. But that's on a lighter note. On a more serious note, I think I have written it quite clearly in my book, Wartime. The big war that India faces would be with China. And it may not be later, it may be sooner than we expect. And this time, there will be China supported by Pakistan, perhaps by Bangladesh, and maybe there are elements within India, and I'm saying it very carefully because both Ukraine's strikes in Russia as well as Israeli strikes in Iran have proved that war has moved into enemy territory.
Yes.
So we should be prepared for many surprises in the next round.
No, but that's the question that as a Bharatiya, as someone who's looking at the interests of our country as prima facie, why are we not learning the scriptures in terms of statecraft? Why are we not embedding ourselves within the Chinese system and learning and outlearning what the Chinese are doing? Why are we not obsessed with the fact that to secure ourselves, we need to outthink the enemy, and this is the enemy? Now, to define that, like General Pandey was saying, there are people who are saying avoid kar sakte hain. We can't be so pacifist in this, because that's what's going to happen. General Group Captain Vinod, your thoughts here? Because the Chinese were giving real-time intelligence. Did the Bharatiya not know? Did the government not know that the Chinese are going to be helping?
Namaste to all of you. Sorry, Anand, I was halfway through. This rain really played spoil sport, but right on time, I fell back to the base and I'm able to join you. Otherwise, I would have been, fortunate enough to sit there and meet both these gentlemen whom I wanted to meet for a long time. And now, coming to the crux of the matter, there are three important things, Anand, that we need to understand. First and foremost, there is no military industry in in Pakistan at all. They make nothing actually, except probably a few GRDs in Murid, they make nothing. So those were the first ones we took them out of the scene. And thereafter, now it is technology against technology when you're not crossing the border. Now the technology also needs to sit within the way you apply. You can have wonderful technology, but if your application is bad, then the technology is of no good. For example, during 6-day war, the missiles that Egyptians had were put in a pillbox when they were mobile. So the wrong application of technology can lead to a lot of issues. In our case, we were fighting three technologies. One, the United States of American technology, which is F-16 with the AIM-120 and what have you. Then you had the J-10, J-15, and the Chinese technology, and the Turkish technology. All three, without sounding, that I'm giving some kind of an embellishment to this statement, all three were, given a proper reply. For want of a better word, I'm saying probably a very, हमने एक तमाचा मारा है उनके technology पे. But now coming back to what sir was saying, in this they have learned. These three countries have learned. Pakistan has not learned anything. It is testing ground for not only these countries, it is testing ground for our weapons as well. So it was a free testing ground in which we also tested our technology.
Yeah, we gave them a BrahMos for free. Not one, many actually.
Many. And they also understood, and their Prime Minister is our brand ambassador for BrahMos. He came up and said so in so many, occasions. But if at all this thing gets repeated, I'm sure, have to rework how we are going to approach Pakistan, because by now they would have learned a lot of the way we are going to approach their technology, firstly, and what our philosophy is. Thirdly, like sir said very correctly, that a restrained war is something that we may not have the luxury to fight in the next time. So next time, it has got to be, cross the border and give them a bloody nose, because this time we did not do so.
Right. All right. So let's take the conversation forward. Haan ji, boli.
That point which you're mentioning about why we were prepared or not. This facet I must assure you and the viewers that Indian Armed Forces were fully cognizant of this facet, that the Chinese may not put boots on the ground to support an operation or may not mobilize in the stage one, but whatever smallest conflict will happen or exchange of words or power or weapons will take place between India and Pakistan, they will provide information, right? They will provide technology, they will provide equipment to ensure that Pakistanis are able to fight adequately. So this is the first year. To presume ever in your life at any strategic community that there is a conflict going to go on, it may be trade, it may be economic, it may be informational, it may be a military engagement. The Chinese are going to stand away, even though Pakistan will keep on leaning towards the West for everything, is impossible. China is going to always support, even at the cost of paying from their own pocket.
उनका तो there is a strategic interest for them, and they are far more invested there. There's just some more exclusive information that we have. Just want to share with our viewers. Our guests are also watching this. Now, top security sources have told CNN News 18 and Manoj Kumar Gupta getting us these details that during the DGMO level ceasefire talks in May, Pakistan provided precise details of Indian strike vectors sourced through Chinese satellites, SIGINT aircraft, and also radar sweeps, exposing Beijing's proxy war tactics. Now, Indian encrypted communications were intercepted via Chinese ELINT platforms, compromising target secrecy and also enabling precise Pakistani counter-strikes. Now, sources have further said that Pakistan executed strikes with unusual precision using 81% of its combat inventory, J-10C jets, PL-15 missiles and EW modules, and treated the conflict as a live weapons lab. Now, the Bayraktar TB2 drones, accompanied by trainers and pilots, were deployed for persistent aerial surveillance and also guided artillery barrages. Now, there is more. Now, Bharat's Project Kautilya jammers. Now, these were the ones that disrupted the Pakistani ISR channels, including neutralizing the enemy drones and also artillery accuracy. Sky Striker drones, BrahMos and Scalp EG cruise missiles replaced manned missions. Target decisions were compressed to under 60 minutes to evade the ISR leaks. Army, Air Force and Navy units were synchronized under a dynamic control grid, limiting adversary ISR exploitation. National Security Advisor Ajit Doval briefed the US, Russia, the UK, Gulf partners, securing strategic backing and exposing Chinese covert aggression. Bharat's inability to cloak troop movements in real time proved costlier than the ordnance losses. Now, China's indirect participation weaponized both Pakistan and Turkey, avoiding diplomatic fallout. Future warfare will be sensor-driven, not tank-driven. Bharat's swift transition to drone-based strikes, electronic warfare and theatre-level command within 48 hours stalled the adversary's momentum. Now, security sources also say that Operation Sindur was not a conventional war. It was a test bed for fifth-generation multi-domain conflict orchestrated by China, executed by Pakistan and augmented by Turkey. That's what they added. Now, Bharat's strategic success lay not in battlefield wins, but in recognizing and rapidly adapting to this paradigm. Now, General Pandey, even the CDS had hinted at this. They said that we recalibrated quickly. So there was an underestimation of the involvement of the Chinese or the real. Okay, explain it to us. Explain it to us.
Firstly, it will be callous on my part to say that Indian armed forces, when they're preparing, they were not aware that the Chinese
they didn't
will
game
be watching.
this part.
Yeah, it was. I have taught this for 2 years. We have been part of this war gaming exercise. The first thing which comes up every time, that when the Pakistanis are going to initiate an action, what all things the Chinese will do, and this comes out very clearly every time. Come what may, the Iron Brothers, right, in which the Chinese are gripping with that iron claw, the Pakistanis, they will provide ISR support, they will provide equipment support, they will provide logistics, they will provide, because it makes sense. India may have a very evolved system that we don't interfere, we are very good people and all. The Chinese don't think that way, neither the West. Right? In case Pakistanis are going to die the last Pakistani for achieving the Chinese end state, validation of equipment, validation of which, by the way, they are not going to be using against us only. They will use it after 10 years down the timeline against the West, right? So they need to validate all this. So every time, and this is a process, this is an OODA process. Every time we fire a missile, we open a radar system. We also come to know that the enemy has picked up, not picked up. There are signatures which come up. Next time when you carry out in a very, very fast OODA loop, you keep on changing, evolving your tactics, including what is about the equipment. If you don't do, you will keep on suffering losses all the time.
Correct.
So that dynamism, internal thought process, internal checks and balances exist in our system, right? I may be retired, I can always look back and say, nahi, bahut stringent hai. It is not the thing. Why is it so, you think, that within 3 to 4 days, we are again able to thrash them?
Correct.
Every time they came, they were coming like zombies, and their drones and systems were taken out, right? They did not change their system, the tactical level
evolve,
operation. But you imagine on the 4th day, we breached everything. And 11 airfields and plus more, which we don't talk of, got hit together simultaneously. Where does it happen?
Correct.
So there are two parts. One is about strategic intelligence, right? The strategic intelligence are our decision when we are going to strike.
Correct.
What are we going to do? Which kind of equipment we are going to use was not available to the Chinese and anywhere. So let's give credit to our strategic leadership that everything was so tight that even the 0.5, which is working within India against this thing, as Ambassador Dogra so rightly brought out, they were not able to pass this information. But in the tactical lead, what you said, or what Manoj said, that within 60 minutes, when you compress, the possibility of a reaction at the tactical level reduce.
Yeah.
So that is why we are able to breach and succeed.
Correct, but that's the quick recalibration that happened. The other part, it was interesting in that information that Manoj has been able to glean out, that we sounded out some of the Western nations about the Chinese shadow involvement or perhaps direct involvement. And did that also hold us in good stead, because there was some amount of aid or intel sharing that happened with us, or diplomatically we got that cover fire?
No, that was just the right move, because it's good to share your cards with some of your allies and maybe friends, so that they are not caught unawares and they don't think we are wrong-footing them.
Right.
But I want to make a couple of other points. One, in comparison to Russia-Ukraine war, which has gone on for 3 years plus, in comparison to Israel-Hamas war, Israel has not been able to get better of Hamas. It's a small population, probably lesser than Gurgaon. Yemen outlasted America, Saudi Arabia and UAE. It did not yield to them. We did it in 3-4 days, thanks to our gods, thanks to our military planners, and thanks to the grit of all involved in the war. But the other point is this Chinese perfidy. You know, it has been, you talked of 5G, I've written it in wartime, that China has supplied all the 5G. That is why the CPEC has got no commercial value at all. It has got only strategic value. And they had set up 2 Baidu stations, one near Karachi and one near Lahore, about 7-8 years back. And the idea was to synchronize Pakistani and Chinese communication system totally, so that it is one better than the Indian system.
Yeah.
And that was their effort even during this conflict. Then Chinese for long have been helping Pakistan build bunkers on the other side of their hills. Chinese, the reports say, have also stationed a few thousand, some say 50,000 troops for a long time along POK and others. In fact, we saw Chinese activities, military activities in Badakhshan region as early as 2002, when I had set up the air base in Tajikistan. So China has been backing Pakistan fully, but much more worrying is the statement by the Chinese foreign minister over the last 3 days. First, he said that next time China is going to back Iran fully and is going to ensure that it does not get defeated. Yesterday, it said China is going to back Russia fully. Russia will not be defeated, and if China was involved in backing Russia today militarily, Ukraine war would be over long back. We are doing this to back Russia because we do not want America to confront us. So China, why does he say that? It's not because of Taiwan. It's because of a bigger fish they are going to fry.
Bigger fish they're going to, but how effective are they going to be, and can they actually, or is this just posturing, or are they just gaming all of this because they have a long-term vision, like General Pandey was also saying, that perhaps 10 years down the line, 12 years down the line, they foresee a conflict, an eventual conflict where they will have to establish their supremacy, and if they're able to establish their supremacy without firing a single missile directly, then does that win the war for them in the head itself? Now that's another long game that they play.
Anand, once again, wartime, the American defense establishment in repeated scenarios have come up with this conclusion that in case of a war with China, America will be defeated. I'm not saying this. This is Pentagon saying this.
General Pandey, before I bring in Group Captain Vinod with another update, you're just nodding your head.
No, actually, I just can't agree more what he's saying. This is where our establishment is failing, right? This question was asked to me by one of your anchors today afternoon, what decision we need to take. There comes a time that we need to understand that the power of America is not way diminished, but the capability and capacity to exercise that power is diminishing.
Diminished.
Right? When compelled by Benjamin Netanyahu, they carry out a strike on Kuwait. You remember we talked of it, it will happen in the next 48 hours.
Correct.
And everybody was surprised it happened within 24 hours actually. And they very quickly pulled back. They came into a safe air defense zone where air superiority was established, and they carried out for 25 minutes kind of a bombardment, and thereafter quickly pulled away. And then it called as a major success, which actually it was not. Their capacity to take war is reducing by fastest. Today they are unable to provide weapons and equipment to Ukraine because their own levels of equipment and everything has diminished, right? The only challenge what is happening on the other spectrum is that Russians' capacity or capabilities of stature has diminished because of this 4-year war. And therefore China is now sensing an opportunity. And this is exactly what they have done, what Ambassador has said. They are very, very smart player. They have learned this art of not fighting directly with any major power, but through proxy. So Iran will become a proxy very slowly. And what happened in SEO? You know, SEO was started technically by Russians actually. And slowly in 20 years, Russians and they don't have a space, they have to keep quiet because China is, when you use a military power, your power starts diminishing, right? It is very powerful when you're there. Your economic power is diminishing. China's economic military power remains where it is, right? The beauty is that he is using every time somebody opens an equipment to data form, right?
Correct.
In Israel, in Russia, you remember there's a report which has come out that they've sent back about 200 Chinese engineers who were there involved in what were they doing? They are data farming. If we don't understand what technology is going to play, you may not have to put boots on the ground to actually diminish a country.
Yeah.
Iran-Israel war fought in 12 days, 1,500 kilometers apart. 1,500 kilometers apart. You imagine what they have done to each other.
And the dynamics of future war are also changing. But here's another part, and we'll bring in Group Captain MJ Vinod with this. Another big message to the adversaries. Bharat has made its intent very clear. Army Design Bureau's ADG, Major General C.S. Maan, has said, no Chinese parts will be used in any military components, especially drones. We are keeping stringent checks and protocols to eliminate vulnerabilities, especially in drone systems. Listen in.
एंड जहाँ तक चाइनीज ड्रोन का सवाल है, आपको पता होगा मैंने लास्ट ईयर सितंबर में भी बताया था कि हम एक फ्रेमवर्क बना रहे हैं. वो फ्रेमवर्क हमारा बन गया है, वो अंडर अप्रूवल है. जब वो अप्रूव होएगा तो उसके हिसाब से टेस्टिंग करी जाएगी, जिससे कि ताकि हमारे कोई भी ड्रोन्स के अंदर सिक्योरिटी वल्नरेबिलिटीज ना हो, उनका ख्याल किया जाएगा.
He's in the business of drones now, Group Captain MJ Vinod. So is this true, and how effective is this possible? And if secondly, is it possible? Because the Make in India terminology allows you to import certain number of components, and as long as it is less than I think 20%, then it's still deemed Make in India. But how much of it is from China, and is this risk being mitigated, as ADG Maan is saying?
And before I come to that question per se, wanted to address a couple of other issues that we were discussing till now.
Sure.
So I took the opportunity of, since I have fallen back to the base, I took the opportunity of putting up this particular image behind me. Now this is also a technology we were fighting, and let me tell you, this particular skirmish with Pakistan and India was the winner in all this is actually Chinese, because the amount of information and the amount of technology and the amount of standard operating procedures that he was exposed to is much more than gold mine, let me tell you. Firstly, to demystify this further, firstly, he was able to operate alongside American equipment, alongside Czech equipment. That is why this equipment I put behind me. This is called Vera E. Vera E is a passive system which takes the time information from GPS and GLONASS as well as from Galileo, and I am more than certain they have also included Bedu in this. And this passive system, you cannot firstly locate them, and they will be able to locate all transmissions and give them in a very wonderful platter to Pakistanis, which I'm sure Chinese have access to. They also had opportunity of fighting against Western equipment as well as Russian equipment, which has been beautifully modified and in which Indian equipment and Western equipment has also been integrated, which is Sukhoi 30. Sukhoi 30 carries Western missiles, Indian missiles, as well as the Russian missiles. So it was a gold mine of an opportunity for them. And like General Pandey said, this is going to go into their archives. It will be studied by the Chinese university and the other people before they come up with a viable alternative. And we need to be ahead, like he said, on the OODA loop. Now, coming to your question per se, it's something that we need to, like we discussed on the other day's Manthan also, when we came over there. We need to move from Make in India to Made in India as of yesterday. There is no two ways about it, because this 20% Make in India, especially in drones, is, Anand, let me tell you, is not going to work. You, even today in Make in India projects, I'm not mincing words, there are people who are able to get stuff from China and able to integrate it into our drones. And those are probably finding its way into the Indian Army, which is not good. And I have personally tested this out when software of a famous drone company called DJI, when it updates, we tried to find out how much is uploaded and how much is downloaded. It uploads GBs of data, downloads, KBs of data. So the DJI drone itself, wherever it is, that is why Americans have, rightfully banned it. It cannot enter American soil. It cannot enter Indian soil as well, but somehow it is finding its way into Indian soil. And it is one of the greatest snooping device, ubiquitous snooping device that is available. And I'm absolutely, with General Maan. General Maan and I have discussed on this particular aspect for a long, long time. We're trying to sit down and write down a roadmap. It is not possible to do it tomorrow, Anand. It is not possible to do it 3 months, 6 months, 1 year down the road. But if we stay on it, if we stay the course, it is possible. Absolutely possible. For which policy changes as well as some incentive applications. And like General Maan said very clearly, Indian Army having some kind of a standard operating procedure in which they are able to check. So these things need to come in. So this is that, I would add that, like Ambassador said, I would add that aspect to even the 0.5 that we are talking about. I would put it to say 0.75. The 0.5 are those human beings who are in the payroll of China, and 0.75 is including this particular technical aspect added to the whole thing. So we are fighting a war which is, hats off the way we fought it.
Is this realization there even among the common folk? Is this realization even there among those who are in the power corridors that we are fighting a war which is a perennial war? It's a continuous war. It's a war of information, a war of one-upmanship, and war of somebody who's already thought this, gamed this for 10 years, 15 years ahead of us. We are caught in the minutiae of things which is not there at all, because largely nobody is looking at this larger perspective. Like you said, sir, those who did not fight this conflict, General Saab, like Group Captain, they are the winners here. They have learned from everybody. They have collected all the information. They would have seen the trajectory of the Rafale, the Sukhois, the Mirages. They would have seen the S-curve maneuver of the BrahMos and said, where is it being fired? How are we recalibrating? What is our response time? They will game all of this in future. Are we even thinking from that perspective that what have we learned from the Chinese? How much are we learning from them? What is happening there? And how many of our people or our intelligence is embedded over in China for us to learn from? What are they up to?
So, there is I will love to believe it is so, but there are two layers. There is one layer which for last many years or at least a decade and a half, and I've heard these conversations, very authentic thumping on the table, war is not going to happen, right? And we've seen 3 major skirmishes. The moment you start believing war is not going to happen, you are going to invest time, money, energy into an armed forces accordingly, right? So that is one part. So one is strategic community, I don't think is really appreciating what is going on in spite of seeing what is happening over the world. The second is at the lower end spectrum, there are cheap businessmen, that L1 bidding system, in which when you say that you need to buy something on L1, right? He is going to do what Group Captain Vinod was saying. He is going to sneak in something, right? It may come through a Western world, but then it will come through the Western world in which those chips, those things which are going to be sending messages will be always embedded. And there is no foolproof system to actually giving a self-certification.
So, most of these soldiers have China-made phones.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
if they switch on those phones, how do we know that the Chinese don't have something embedded there that allows them to geolocate movement? Now, troop movement satellites are all over there hovering. We know exactly how long. We've got a Google Maps of the satellites in space, which is indigenously built. We know that those satellites are hovering around which place for how long. They're collecting data. We can't do anything about that. But we have to figure out a counter to that also, that even if they collect that data, they should not be able to do anything about it.
So, you know what ADG has said, it is that we are not going to allow. What about the equipment which we have? That equipment when you buy today is going to last for next 40 years. You just can't move it to the auditors. Oh, we got new equipment, which is Indian system. This 1,000 pieces of equipment which has possibly got Chinese stuff is now going to be parked away and thrown away. It doesn't happen this way. So, for some period of time, we may keep on imagining that we are going to ensure that no listening device, no electromagnetic system is available through which the Chinese or the West can listen through. We don't even have our own engineers capacity in which we can actually produce. So it will take time to wean away. It will not happen today, but the focus of the strategic community, our strategic direction needs to be there to look into indigenous systems or the systems which you think are going to be pure and your own, which have been actually purified, or I am not getting the right word, right?
Right. Which have been sanitized, if I may say.
Yeah.
Ambassador Saab, a quick comment before we move on. There's another dimension with respect to China only, that's on the diplomatic corner, but your thoughts here.
One quick comment. I am really alarmed by General Man's statement. What he said was, it is awaiting approval.
Yeah.
So that means even now we have not woken up. In America, they found that within the chip, there was a micro dot which was taking away all the information from Defense Department. And here, despite what happened to Hezbollah's pagers, which blasted most of the leadership in Lebanon, we are letting soldiers have telephones, mobiles, which are China made. Our perhaps entire leadership, perhaps our intelligence community also has chips on their mobiles which are China made. So where is the larger security that we hope to have? In all this, my warning, and I'm using that word very carefully, that time is not on our side. Neither China nor Pakistan are going to wait for our convenience.
Yeah, and we should never expect that also, but let's hope that inclination, that thinking is there. Viewers, there's a reason why we are spending so much time on deliberating this and also speaking about these dimensions.
News18.com marches way ahead of the Times of India with 38% more users on native and social platforms. Network 18, the undisputed leader of news networks, way ahead of the Times.